Welcome, beautiful souls. Welcome back. Happy solstice. Today is the 21st of June, and the sun is just beginning to shine in here. We've had some very cloudy days lately, so blessings for the solstice. And for those of you that have a practice of yoga in whatever form it takes, happy International Day of Yoga. Today, I am returning to a discussion regarding the Sasuraibito tarot. And this is part 3 of 3. And if you are interested in some further reflections on this deck, I'll be sure to link the other 2 videos below. I don't think I have done that yet. Okay, so let us begin. I want to go back and I will need to find the card. This was a comment from last week from IJ, and I thought this was a great way. I really appreciate your feedback into this discussion. This is a very interesting 4 of Wands in this deck. I will put it on the camera, zoom in here. Hi, Laura. Hot, hot, hot in Houston. Okay. And I think what I will do is read Stasia's comments on this book. So what I see here is something quite ethereal, which feels unusual in a number of stability. I see ethereal lines connecting and in some sort of a magical way keeping those 4 vertical wands in balance, in check with one another. It's almost as if the stability is what is fundamental to this stability is spirit. I think there's some very interesting ways this card could be read. Double stability. So let's look at Stasia's comment first, and let's just do this bit by bit, and then we'll get back to the walkthrough of the deck. We are on the court cards for the cups. Okay. You would think I would have the page ready, but I do not. She says this is the lucky card in the deck. This shows a stable structure floating in a starry sky. All right, so that's exactly what I have always seen in this card. It is time to enjoy the results of your hard work, to celebrate a milestone, anniversary, or just to have a party. This is a super positive card, one indicating joy and fun. The structure with its 4 sides resembles a home. This card concerns your home life and environment. The keywords are celebration, happiness, and freedom. Now, I have not necessarily associated all of those with 4 of Wands before. I see the Wands very much as the card of getting to know one's life path. It is it's a force. It's a basic. That's not the right word. It's a primitive force that we learn to manage, and I think it's one that can become quite unstable very easily. And in this card, we have reached a place where there is some confidence and comfort with what we have moved through. And I think there's quite a bit of the hero here as well too, because if you think about a 2 of Wands and a 3 of Wands and the decisions and the choices that need to be made regarding one's journey in those cards is not easy. And so here, I think this is a card reassuring us that we have been making good choices and that we indeed are on path. It's a really beautiful card. And So to go to IJ's comment, something to note about the Four of Wands, it could be above a smoking fire or a dying fire, and it is surrounded by smoke. It's really interesting how we all see different things in the cards, and what you associate with smoke may be different from someone else. I think of one of my favorite tarot decks, the Lily White Tarot, and in the suit of air, we have a lot of incense and smoke. And smoke is a way of connecting us to spirit. I believe air is the lightest element, and so perhaps there is something to this as well too. But yeah, so always give yourself permission to dive into little rabbit holes wherever you need to go, because sometimes they are full of juicy nuggets. All right, so let's resume the discussion with these four chords. I have a very soft spot in my heart for all of the pages in this deck, and I have to say that this Queen and King as well too. The pages all have a very feisty energy to them. I would say they are children who parents, oh my goodness, for the most part are just beaming inside, but it is exhausting. It is exhausting to raise a child with so much life force. And all of these pages, I will put them on the table for you, have an incredible amount of life force. And I would suggest that the creator of this deck also has a great deal of love, perhaps for her nieces and nephews, for a younger version of herself. There is that Page of Wands. And we will look at the Page of Pentacles in a little bit, which is a really interesting card. It could almost be a page of air. So we are missing Page of Swords. Yeah. And of course, you've seen these other ones, but it's kind of fun to put them all on the table at the same time. So determined. So determined. And I love this focus. For me, young people, or, when I'm working with page energy, this is not always working with young people. This is a stage in someone's life where they give themselves permission to do whatever it is they want to do, and however it is they want to do it. And I'm trying to think what decks I have. I do have a few decks that have older, I'm thinking of the Jamie Sawyer Tarot, I know that's one, where the pages are older, and it really is very, very endearing. So the suit of cups, there is cups. We'll take these ones away for now. The body skin tones of some of the cards. Now, if you look at the Knight of Cups, we have someone who's very white, albino kind of coloring. Is there something to the paleness of the body? Is there something about that? I do really read something into the blue colors of the skin tones in this deck. Or is this simply an effort to represent different races and so forth? I think that's up to you to decide. When I see such a paleness of skin, it does leave an impression. There is a lot of vulnerability in this card, in the Knight of Cups, I feel. And perhaps through the boisterous, outgoing, the pages in all of the suits, they don't hold back in this deck. And perhaps the Knight of Cups is realizing that there is another way to cultivate the energy of water. And there is a book under the right arm. And so I would suggest their action is in reflection. And perhaps that is a book of poetry. It could be a journal. And it's a time of slowing down. And we don't, I'll pull out all the knights in a little bit. It's really interesting to see such a reflective Knight of Cups. And if you look at the Queen, she also is very much like her son, their son. And we see the cosmos reflected in her cup, as well as in the background. So there's something about these two courts that feels deeply spiritual, and such a lightheartedness around the King of Cups. And when I look at the leaves around his head, that reminds me of symbols in any sort of card where you see a wreath around the head, like perhaps in the Six of Wands or something. I would say that the King of Cups in this deck, and there's a few of them where the energy of the King of Cups isn't so, I think the tendency is to paint the King of Cups in shadow, but here I'm seeing one who has seen it all, felt it all, been through it all, and now is ready to listen and to share a cup of tea or hot chocolate, whatever it may be. I really appreciate the way this King of Cups is drawn. I find it odd that King of Cups in shadow, it's so very, very challenging. It's almost like a denial of, I'm thinking of Slow Tarot for one, a denial of the journey. It wasn't worth it sort of energy. Perhaps the page is holding the key to the book that is under the arm of the knight. And these are the kind of stories that you can weave with these decks. Now, should we look at all the knights, and then I'll go into the final two suits. So there is Knight of Cups, Knight of Swords, and it's really amazing the effort that was made to represent different cultures and different ages in this deck. I do appreciate that. Knight of Wands, very macho, which is an energy that we often see in Knight of Wands. The risk taker, the athletic one. And the Knight of Pentacles is in the field. This may be one of very few decks I'm laughing at Laura's comment. One of very few decks where you do not see the knights in motion. I would say they are deep in reflection of their element. All right, we good? So let's look at the swords. And again, here's another card, shrouded in smoke. Shrouded in smoke. Can I put 4? Okay. the story of the swords is really up to you whether you are going to draw upon a vocal awakening, an awakening of voice or truth, whether there is something to, now the more that I study tarot, the more that I understand that this is no accident, the pain and the hurt, the feeling energy that we experience here. So if you think of the journey through Wands, Cups, Swords, Pentacles, and when we transition into the Suit of Swords, perhaps we're getting a little bit away from being overly emotional, and there's more thought and consideration that's happening, more mindfulness. But at the same time, I don't think the challenges ever get any easier. And the swords share with us a different approach, but there's a lot of common energy among the Suit of Cups and the Suit of Swords. They're both, I would say, equally challenging. I think there is something to the swords piercing from back to front, and I find that quite freeing in a way. So when I'm thinking of energy blocked in the body, in this part of the body, it's often in the back. So the back rib cage is really tight, the back is sore, the back is less flexible. And I really like that the swords are piercing through the back, that which we do not see, that which we're not aware, and all of that. So there's something I can work with there. There is, as I mentioned before, a bit of a Buddhist lean to this deck. And you also would have if you're aware of Buddhist teachings, any of the parables of Buddhism and the Buddha, they could certainly be brought into this deck. I am fascinated with the color pink in these cards, and I really would like to interview Stasia one day and ask her about her choice of color. You know, sometimes when a deck creator creates a deck, the print house does something to alter color, and it may not be the color that was originally intended. And I hope that's not the case for the pinks in this card, the reds and the pinks. I think there's a lot of, and when I think of red and pink, I'm not sure where you would go chakra-wise, but I feel very, again, lots of primal energy in this deck. This is a deck that wants us to be in that space, to heal basic instinct and so forth. Yeah. And much like the Eight of Cups, that Six of Swords is truly something. And it's funny because I really feel like the descriptions in the book for many of the cards do not do justice to the artwork. I think some of those descriptions could definitely be more poetic, because Stasia Burrington, the artist, has really felt something that she perhaps was not able to express in words. The element of air is the element of the heart. This is one of the few decks where the person who is leaving, escaping in the Seven of Swords, has all of the swords with them. So that's something that's quite unique. And I wonder as well too if you are aware of the energy points on the fingers, if there may be a particular needle that is speaking to you in that Five of Swords. That Five of Swords to me feels like tools for acupuncture and an invitation to pierce through something. And what I want to say here is that pain, understanding pain as a great, great teacher is so important. And when we have a treatment such as acupuncture, it can affect us on so many, many levels. And so there is something really kind of beautiful to the energy of the tool of the sword in that card. Okay. I'm going to move these out of the way. And let's look at the 9 and the 10. So here is another example in the 10 of the ethereal nature. Is something there? Is it really there? Is it not there? And all of the swords are between the heart chakra and the throat chakra, and I think that is definitely saying something, as opposed to having the swords on the back body over the whole body. You may not dive into details like that in this deck, but I really quite like that. Also in her 9 of Swords, that the swords are not evenly placed overhead like a shutter. I love the noise in this card. And sometimes, so what I envision here are, if you can, for some reason I'm thinking of a scene in Harry Potter. Okay, let's go to Harry Potter. If you haven't seen it, I apologize. I'll try to describe the scene. There is a scene in a classroom where a quite incompetent teacher releases some pixies from a cage, and some of the more clever students attempt to get the pixies back in the cage, either by stunning them or by putting a spell on them or something. But as these pixies escape from the cage, the noise, the shrill noise, and the poking and the annoyance that they create is just overwhelming. That's the sort of feeling I have here. And then what it takes to stun or return the pixies to the cage is something very mindful, such as the creation of a spell. I really encourage tarot students to bring a story, whether it is contemporary literature or something from the classics. It could be something from religious studies, or even sometimes very modern novels have deep messages. And I think one of the greatest ways of expanding your repertoire of language with any given card is to have as many resources as possible to work with. Yeah. Okay, and the court cards for swords. Here's the Queen and the King. You've seen the other two, but I will put them on the table. Surprisingly youthful King of Swords in this deck. Does this bother me at all? Is there something about maturity and kings? Is there something about youthfulness and pages? I think it's pretty clever when that has been switched up. Now, if you associate King of Swords with surgeon or philosophy professor or lawyer or a wordsmith of some sort, this can happen. We can find our place at different times in life. It doesn't necessarily have to happen in our 50s or 60s. I think this deck does a good job in being inclusive. The Knight of Swords, I think, is a challenging card to sit with. And whether you see the butterfly as being pierced, or whether you see a mirror image of two butterflies on either side of the sword, I think that's up to you and your interpretation. Butterflies are a symbol of transformation, and there is something piercing through, a truth that is piercing through that transformation. And so this court card takes on a little bit different energy than perhaps a knight who is riding wildly off on a quest or to a battle. I've always found this deck very easy to read, and I was surprised when several people requested this for a deck deep dive, because I've found it easy to figure out what's going on in readings. For a long time, this was a deck that I went to. What did I call this deck? Well, sometimes I call these sort of decks my swords deck. Sometimes I call them my, they cut straight to the chase. And then we find ourselves in the suit of integration, the suit of Malkut, the suit of earth, the suit of manifestation. And I love those peonies. This flower we see in various forms, whether it's a rose or a peony or whether it's a lotus. We see this flower in many places in the deck. There is a lot of pink, a lot of rouge on those cheeks, and so you may or may not read something into that. The choker as well too. I wonder if you see something there. But I would say the page looks peaceful, and they are not fussing about with the bees that are overhead. This reminds me a lot of, I've told this story before, of a sadhu that I met in Tarapet in India, and we were listening to this sadhu play a stringed instrument and singing some spiritual songs. And we were sitting down on the ground in a cremation ground. And in the midst of the spiritual bhajan, the sadhu reached into his garment and took out a flip phone. And I don't think there were too many words exchanged, but the sadhu conducted whatever business he needed to do, and without a breath or any sort of fuss, carried on with the music. And also, simultaneously, this is India, it was hot. There were a lot of flies and bugs, and I was observing how there was more than one sadhu there, but this one that I'm talking about, they weren't bothered by them. They didn't attempt to move the bugs. the flies. Yeah. And so in this Ace of Pentacles, I really feel that contentment. And perhaps through contentment, through peace, perhaps we need to move from peace. If we move from peace and through peace, if we move through a place of trust, then anything is possible. This is, of course, the suit of manifestation. Oh. I think so much can be read into this card. It's very clever, very clever. For those of you that haven't joined in the series that I'm doing presently on the planets, the next one is the first Saturday in July. This has been a really good series to take your tarot reading to a different level and to start to integrate some of the more esoteric layers. And I'm just, as I'm looking at these cards, I'm thinking about their planetary associations, because it really does. It adds a whole other dimension. Okay, and then the last few cards we have 5 of Pentacles, in your tarot decks. There's something about garment color, bare skin. And if that's not something you pay attention to, I think it's definitely worthwhile. Color has a frequency, and it may or may not be an intention of the creator, but I would say that anybody who's painting is aware of color frequency. Maybe something that was partly subconscious here, but there's a lot we could share with that. Yeah. I would like to read the 6 of Pentacles. I think this is one that gives people a little bit of trouble. And what is actually happening here with the string that we see between the two? And what does that string represent? And what is being shared? You may also notice the detailed henna on the hand of the woman. Whether it's a henna or a tattoo, it looks more like a henna. I've always found it an odd card. An exchange of some kind takes place on this card. It appears that some substance is being passed from one individual's mouth to the other. You will either receive or give something of great value. The black line symbolizes this gift, knowledge, assistance, power. At first glance, it appears that the person on top is the giver and the person below the receiver. But is this really the case? Teachers learn from students. This card is an invitation to question our assumptions about the appearance of balance. There is a subtle interplay between the giver and the taker. Who are you in this equation? Be generous with and open to receiving great gifts of wisdom, time, and energy. And so you could also turn this card, you could turn the card this way. Sometimes in a reading, I do. I turn cards around, or I get the querent to look at the card from a different angle. If I have laid the cards facing me and the querent is across the table, I will often turn the cards around. I think that it's important to see and feel the expression of the souls of the faces. There's something very, very gentle in these hands. To me, I feel it's almost like a healing connection. There's a practice so part of the Reiki practice is you can heal through blowing. And if you think about sometimes how perhaps a parent blows on a child's boo-boo, on their hurt, this is a real thing that through breath we're able to heal. This also makes me think about that. Sevens. Sevens, always so problematic and full of mystery, and we have a monarch butterfly come to visit us. I want to say steeped in esotericism. 7 is a very mysterious number, and I think it's very interesting to I don't know how many of you actually contact creators when you are confused about a particular card, or you what you do about it, but I often write to creators and ask questions, or sometimes it follows through to a YouTube interview, sometimes not. But when a card feels confusing, I think putting it out in front of you so you can look at it. You can also use a card of confusion as a significator. So if there was a card that felt challenging to read, I think putting it down as your topic card and then pulling 2 other cards is a great way to understand what that card means for you on this day. Because these cards are going to mean different things on different days to different people. And I think 8 of Pentacles, there's a lot we can read in this book, in this card. Another one that feels a little different than Waite-Smith energy. And then Happy International Day of Yoga, 10 of Pentacles. The falcon is often hooded in this card, and there is protection on the shoulder that the bird is on, but the falcon is free. And we have an eye overhead. There may be, I'm pretty sure there are other eyes in this deck, so that is something that you might want to look for. When I see the you may call it acro yoga, you can call it partner yoga. This is one of the most freeing practices. And it might not necessarily have to be yoga, but any sort of practices where you must trust another. And honestly, I've done a few of these different classes. You have the most amazing openings when you are able to use another's body as your prop. And I don't know if that has anything to do with this card, but there's something about the power of the connection here that awakens something in another. And then we have the dog on top. The whole fan family is there. And the world. So you can also use the Hi, Moira. The description, wheel. So wheel of earth, wheel of fire. And look at the tens in those terms as well too. And I suppose that's coming to mind because in this deck, the pentacles are arranged in a wheel rather than a tree of life configuration. And so my recommendation for the cards that you want to read a little different than you would if you had a straight up Waite Smith deck, I would say go ahead and read them however you want to read them. There is some brilliant interpretations in these cards. Maybe some of them wouldn't be places that I would go to intuitively, but I think in general that Stasia has done a very, very good job with this. I'm just looking for the other Pentacles court cards because they seem to have disappeared. There's the Knight. With the King, what I'm reading in that card is a certain level of integration. This feels very Tree of Life, Malkut. The tens, of course, would be in the Sephira at the bottom of the Tree of Life, encompassing all. They would be the place where we then turn around and ascend to the Tree of Life. I think that is it's like here in the King of Pentacles, the king is in his kingdom, observing all that he has built and expanded and grown, and standing in awe of, in reverence of, maybe not necessarily his kingdom, but the earth as a reflection of his kingdom. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to shuffle, and do I have time? I have time. I'm going to pull 3 cards for solstice. My deck is very beat up. I have chipped cards. I have chipped gilding. And maybe this as well too had something to do with my comfort with the Japanese language and the amount of time that I have spent with that language. It drew me into this deck. And I got to know a new Japanese word. I didn't know what Sasurai was, and at this point in my life, I don't have a complete, I used to have enormous Japanese dictionaries. I don't have one right now, so I haven't, in all these years, really sat and looked at the etymology of sasurao, the verb sasurao. But if I'm in somebody's home who has a larger dictionary, maybe I'll do that. Be really interesting to look at the kanji for that as well too. Stasia writes it in hiragana on the box. Sasuraibito. Yeah. Okay. This is a reading for the collective on the 21st day of June 2023. For solstice, I'm just going to look at the numbers that we're working with today. 7, so that's 0, 5, and 2. So today is a 7-day. That's a nice number for solstice. Magical mystery number. Also the number of moving on, moving forward. The 6 is the number I feel for the heart space, the place where we really relish all that we have and all that we are, but we can't hang out there too long. It becomes too saccharine. And so I think about the Chariot and the need to go out and be in the realness of life, fully experience life. Hopping on the back of strangers' motorcycles and driving into the jungle. Oh, I can't believe I did that as a young woman. It's crazy. All right. May this reading bring you support and insight into your week ahead. As always, I ask that these messages be in the highest for the greatest good and that no harm be done. So be it. And so we get the wheel. I am hearing a Harry Chapin song. I'm really showing my age. I haven't thought of Harry Chapin in a very long time. He sings a song that goes like this. All my life's a circle, sunrise and sundown. The moon rolls through the nighttime till the daybreak comes around. All my life's a circle, and I can't tell you why. But I have maybe I have my children with me or something. And it's funny, and as I'm singing this, I was in a sorority in university, and we used this tune for one of our sorority songs. Yeah, that was a long time ago. This is a perfect card for solstice. Embrace the wheel. Embrace the wheel. Become more knowledgeable of the power of direction and more conscious of direction and the direction that you are moving and the esoteric associations with direction. It can add so many beautiful layers to your life. Be playful about it. Never, and now, I mean, this is a reading for this week, but I want to say let go a little bit. Let go a little bit. You know, maybe this is about bearing your breasts and whatever that means metaphorically. Get a little bit cocky. Have fun. Do something outside of your comfort zone. I peeked at this card that was the other card that I hesitate to bring it up because I thought, oh wow, this is such a different mood than the other two cards. So here we have the Four of Water, the foundation of water. Don't be too quick to not accept the grace of others. It is with good intention that others share. And while you may feel overwhelmed, consumed with other things, whether it is a dog that needs some attention, or a kitty that walks across your work on your desk, or a neighbor in need. Pay attention, because these are not just random things. I think this teaches us something about love. And in a suit that you would think is about love, about growing understanding and deepening our awareness of love. Early on in the journey, we close ourselves off. And why? Do we fear love? Do we fear getting too close? Do we fear feeling too much? And I would say that that's probably what it is. Interesting, Four of Cups is the card for the third decan of solstice of Cancer season. 2, 3, and 4 of Cups. So it's an important part of this upcoming season, I think, to reflect upon the energy of that card. So I hope there's some part of this message that resonates with you. And if you have any other questions about the Sasuraibito Tarot, please be sure to come back and leave a comment in one of the 3 videos, and I'll do my best to get to it as soon as possible. Okay. I'm going to be on in the Facebook group shortly and talking more about solstice. And I may or may not be live on Friday, my usual tarot time. I have moved the planned 5-year channel anniversary to next Friday because I'm not sure that I will be able to get to a camera. However, if I can, I will do the broadcast this Friday. So life is funny. Life is changing. Life is changing. Yeah. Okay. Good night, everybody. Hi, Claudia. Take good care. Namaste.